Nombulelo, good morning to you. Explain the link as we celebrate Human Rights Day, obviously incredibly tragic all those years ago, but today we look for the positives, we look for the lessons, but tell me how you're putting the link together.
So we all know that most South Africans come from very communal societies where they prioritize the growth of the community, the thriving of the society. And I'm saying here that at times this comes at the expense of the individual and the individual's mental health and ability to thrive within that community. Even when we look at things like Sharpville and a lot of even our current resistance today, a lot of it is framed around the communal strength, right? So I'm saying that if the community is weakened, because right now with everything that has happened in COVID-19, and even prior, because we mustn't forget that South Africa had challenges well before this pandemic hit. Everything that has happened in COVID-19 has depleted individuals. And I think this is the time for us to really try and introspect as individuals, but also within our communities to see how we can individually as well as collectively heal so that we can achieve these human rights.
From a sociology perspective, I don't want to pretend for a moment I know much about sociology. I did it in first year university. I'm pretty sure I failed it. So perhaps take me back to that. As a society in South Africa, you mentioned all the hardships we had before COVID-19. I don't think anyone will disagree. Do you think it set us up to handle COVID-19 as a society and as a country, or do you think that we are still struggling with how to get around this?
I think it definitely has. South Africa has shown a history of being resilient, of being able to overcome, I would argue, struggles that were even far more intense than COVID-19. We were able to beat the Apartheid system. We were able, in a lot of ways, we've been able to transform and to change things, though a lot more still has to be done. But I think at times our resilience can also be a drawback, because we end up being so proud in how resilient that we are that we forget that we actually need to take care of ourselves as well. And I think that's what's important.
The growth and reflecting, Nombulelo, of losses and post-COVID-19. The pre-COVID-19, I think many people will know how to handle that loss. I think we've all had our lives turned upside down, COVID-19 taking loved ones away. It's out of our control. How do we reflect on losses during and post-COVID-19, do you think?
I think every strategy will be different for every individual. It depends on what you need. What you need for your humanity to be reaffirmed. So again, the community becomes very important, because I mentioned in the piece that when it comes to Ubuntu, we almost always look at it as a collective thing, but Ubuntu is important as an individual view as well, to see how the individual exists within the community, and for the community to reaffirm and to reinform that humanity, and to remind each and every single person who forms part of that space that they're worthy. But on individual levels, it's everything from seeking your spirituality to being amongst nature. Things will differ for different people, meditating, but it's important that as individuals we start to try and uncover what it is that we might need to grow and heal from whatever scars and wounds that we have, so that when this pandemic is over and future pandemics are most likely to come, we're able to better deal with those.
Just a last question to you, Nombulelo, perhaps briefly if you can. I'm going to ask about the sociology perspective of Human Rights Day itself, COVID-19 itself, but from a youth perspective. I've spoken to many people over the years on Human Rights Day, and some of the, I want to say this respectfully, elder people that I've spoken to on air, suggesting that the younger generation don't really understand and they don't really get what Sharpeville meant for this country. Do you think there's still a youth ignorance regarding today?
I think the recent Fees Must Fall protests dispel that myth. The youth are very in tune with what the country's struggles are, and aware that even though we're grateful for the sacrifices of the community of Sharpville, that their goal unfortunately hasn't been achieved. Many South Africans still suffer from human rights violations. We don't have access to proper and adequate health care, education. People live in poverty. So I think the youth is very aware of it. I think the youth is just frustrated that through all of the sacrifices that have been made prior to 94, we're still here today.
I appreciate your time in speaking to us from Bloemfontein this morning. Nombulelo Shange, Department of Sociology from the University of the Free State. My thanks to her in speaking to us here on ENCA.